everybody, and welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get to their little hearts, or big hearts, all sorts of big hearts, with your hosts, Ariel and
Raylene. Hello. We're just a little excited.
So, we're just a little excited for lots of reasons. The first one, the biggest one, is you may have seen, we have a whole rebrand. This is a very exciting time for us. It was a big project that we undertook that we kind of didn't. I feel like really neither of us knew it was gonna get that big.
Yeah, for some reason we were like, oh, it'll just be a couple little things and then off we go. And now we've like completely redone all of our branding.
Everything.
Everywhere.
Exactly. So our original logo was created by Holly Arnett, who I'll link in the show notes. We loved the logo, right? Mm-hmm. We still love the logo.
It's fantastic.
On Instagram, they are Maker and Moxie, and they do a lot of beautiful branding work. So if you're interested, there's a cool person to reach out to. Mm-hmm. But we now had the logo for 4 years, and the reason for the shift was two things. Number one, like when you've been sitting in a branding concept for a really long time, I think your thing evolves and you want to feel like things are evolving and are fresh as well. But the main thing was obviously this year we introduced video. Yeah. We started doing the video element and we just sort of slapped it together. I just had a photograph that I took a long time ago that I thought was pretty, but wasn't it had nothing to do with our branding. Yeah. It was just like kind of a bookish photo and we just used that as the background. And then like I drew stuff on my iPad and I think it worked well enough for the first 6 months. But because the videos have been doing so well and you guys have been responding so well to them, we really wanted to invest in like making this real nice. Yeah. So that was why it started. We were like, let's get like an animated intro and an outro.
Zhuzh up the video.
What if we had, zhuzh up the video, exactly. And what if we had like a nice banner on YouTube and we're like, let's just make the video element really nice. Mm-hmm. So we reached out to Maddie VN, Maddieology on Instagram. Again, I'm definitely going to link her down below as well in the description and in the show notes and everything. If you are looking for an illustrator that does branding, but also just does lots of projects, check her out. She's so talented. And she started working on it. And we were like, okay, wait. We need to do everything. Like, we need to update the Instagram. We need to update the Patreon because this just looks so beautiful. And
we can't just do one thing and then, like, leave the rest by the wayside. Like, that just wouldn't work.
It wouldn't look good. So we were like, let's just fully do this and lean in. And I really love that the logo does totally pay homage to our old logo. Mm-hmm. Like, it is our logo, just, like, revamped. Yeah. But we also got to like work with all of these new assets and just to make everything so more beautiful. So I believe that right now we are the most beautiful podcast on planet Earth.
Oh yeah.
And we had like a really fun session with Maddie right at the beginning where we were talking about like what we're going for, what we're rooting for. And she presented a couple things to us and we were like instantly in love with her ideas. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what this reminds me of? 101 Dalmatians, like the illustration style and colors and vibe that gives. And she was like, yes, that's literally exactly what I was going for. And so we really like jumped on that. So if you're feeling that vibe, that was intentional. And I think it just turned out so beautiful.
Yep.
So the other thing, Ray, that we were excited about was like this kind of gives an opportunity to launch some new merch with some of these new little elements as well.
Yes, this is true.
Yes. So things are on the horizon and we're just very excited. And of course, we really, really have to do a huge shout out to the patrons because it would not have happened if it wasn't for the funding from the patrons. Yeah. So fully made possible by our patrons that support the pod and make it pretty. Thank you guys so much. Okay, and the other little tiny housekeeping thing was just that we have moved the podcast release date by one day.
Sorry.
So for the last few years, it wasn't always this way. It
It's
wasn't always
been
on
multiple
Sundays.
different days. I'm pretty sure we've had almost every day of the week at this point. We keep moving it around depending on how we feel, our schedule.
We've had it on Sundays for like 2 years. Though.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was on Tuesdays at one point or
yes,
something.
I think it used to be on Tuesdays for some reason. But for the last 2-ish years, we've like very consistently had it on Sundays. I think the whole time I've lived in this house. So maybe almost 3 years actually. Yeah. But anyways, because of the video, it takes so much longer to edit the podcast now.
Especially adding all this new art and
yeah, exactly.
Stuff. Like, we're just making it harder and harder every week.
And harder. So CJ sent me a very respectful little text that was like, do you think there is any way I could just have an additional day to work on the podcast? Because he obviously crams it in around his full-time job. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense, actually, and we can just move the release date one day later. Yeah. So it also sort of makes sense because we record on Mondays, and so the podcasts will now come out on Monday. So it's exactly 1 week. It's not really a big change at all.
No, it should be fine.
But if you are dying to still get them on the weekends, you can become a patron because the patrons get them 2 days early. So
Saturdays.
If you're dying to get it on a Saturday afternoon, you can.
You can have that.
All right. Those were our little housekeeping things. Very beautiful, happy little things. Raylene, how's BC? What's going on over there? How was your weekend? Tell me everything.
It's good. It was really hot, so I didn't like that. But this weekend, I kind of became a tourist in my own city a little bit, which was really fun. So there's a specific coffee shop that Kyle and I really like in this city, but it's a little bit of a drive from where we live, so we don't go there very often. And I was like, let's just go out to that coffee shop today. Let's do that and, just sit down, have a little coffee, do something we don't normally do.
Cute.
So
I love that.
Exactly. It was a cute little idea, and I was like, that'll just be a nice way to like start the weekend. We did this on Saturday. And as we were driving there, I saw a like bus bench that said something about a bookstore, and I was like, a bookstore I don't know about? Like, this is crazy. But it was gone in a flash. Like, I was like, okay, I'll have to look that up later. Yada, yada, yada.
I feel like this is the first time in history that a bus stop ad actually worked.
No, I've never seen a bookstore ad on a bus bench like that. Like, I was so shocked. I was like, what did I just see? So that was like the first thing. I was like, I don't understand what I just saw, but that's okay. I'll look this up later. Then we go to the coffee shop, and as we're entering the coffee shop, I see a little sign that says, it's the bookstore, is in this like little plaza where the coffee shop was. I was like, are you kidding me? Awesome. That is awesome.
That is awesome.
So I was like, okay, we'll go there after. So we got coffee. We ended up going to like a candy store that was there. There was like one of those little stores that has like different flavored olive oils and vinegars and stuff. And we went in there and got some stuff. So we just like went to a lot of little shops that I didn't even know were there. And then we went to this bookstore, and it was very tiny. A very cute little bookstore. Like, the store could fit inside your living room. That's how small it was. It was very, very tiny. Like, it's just one little room. And it was mostly new books, but they had like a little shelf of used books as well. And I was just like, I have to buy something in here. So I did, as one does. So maybe I'll just jump into that. I have a couple of other books as well that I bought last week that I forgot to haul, but so I just got one book. Actually, I also got a candle from this little bookstore, because it was just so cute. Everything was like locally made. Like, there was like wind chimes being sold at this store as well. There was a lady selling beaded jewelry outside. Like, it was that vibe. There was crystals in the store. It was just like a very fun little vibe. And so I was like, I have to buy something.
I feel like I'm close to my wind chime era. Like, it's around the corner.
I am obsessed with wind chimes. There was one that was like huge though. Ooh. It was really cool. So
how much was it?
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna check next time I go there. I was too distracted by the books, but I was like, wind
totally.
chime.
Remember, I went to the Curious Cat bookshop or whatever it was called, and they had a whole tea section, and I didn't even look at it because I was so excited by the books that I forgot, like, an hour down the drive. I was like, I didn't look at the tea.
Yeah, damn. You'll have to go back. So yeah, the book that I ended up getting from there is called Truth Telling: 7 Conversations About Indigenous Life in Canada by Michelle Good. So I bought this because I read Michelle Good's book, 5 Little Indians, a couple of years ago.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes. It was one of my favorite books that I read in 2021. And I had heard that she just came out with this book quite recently, I think. And I was like, next time I see that, I'm buying it. And so I went into this little store and they had a stack of this book. And so I just snatched it up and I was like, yes, I am going to buy this. So I did. And I'm very excited to read it. One of my friends actually just read it and really enjoyed it as well. So I'm like doubly excited to read it. And it's very small.
That's awesome.
It's like a very small, like just 200-page book of essays.
Cool.
And it's one of those little teeny tiny little books. You know, it's short in stature and it's small. So I think I'm going to pick that up possibly next. We'll see. TBR challenge, everyone. I don't know. We'll see.
That sounds really good though. I love did it say conversation or questions?
Yeah, 7 conversations about Indigenous life in Canada.
I think that's really like a nice setup for a book
so
like
I'm
that.
assuming that it's Michelle Good kind of talking to people potentially about these things. It's not just essays, so I'm excited about it anyway.
Another question I had about the wind chimes.
Please, yes.
Do you prefer a metal wind chime or a wooden wind chime?
That's a really good question. Really good question. I think generally I prefer metal because I love just like the almost like ethereal, like tinkling. Yeah. Yes, I have a wind chime in my backyard actually. And,
really?
But the problem is I got it secondhand from someone and it didn't have like the weight thing on the bottom. So I just put like a keychain on it once to hope that it would like catch the wind, and it doesn't very well. So I only ever hear the wind chime if it's really, really windy. But what I was going to say is that
so funny. I love this conversation.
I know. It's so ridiculous. But then what I was going to say about wooden wind chimes is that I heard one a few weeks ago. I was with some friends at a garden store and they had these wooden wind chimes and we kind of just like made them make their sounds, and it sounded like a tropical jungle sound, which was really nice.
It is more foresty.
It's a different vibe, but it's also very good.
It's more of a deep hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to make a wind chime sound, and I'm so glad I didn't.
That would have been interesting.
Oh my God. Oh, I love that whole conversation. You said, Raylene, I can't wait to hear this episode back, because you said, I actually have a wind chime in my backyard, and I so earnestly said, oh, really? Like, I never cared about something more.
You're so interested in that.
Wow. So funny. Okay, wow. I'm excited to visit you in your new house and like hang out in your new town and go and buy a wind chime. That has to happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you to this little store because there's so many beautiful wind chimes.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, it was awesome. So anyway, that was my little story. Okay. But I'll tell you the other 2 books I got since we're on a roll here. So obviously a couple of weeks ago I read Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, and I was like, I put out a big shout out to the people, like, if you know of any books, any movies, any shows, whatever, about kitchens and restaurants and you know, the food industry, please send them my way. And so I got tons of messages from people, which thank you guys so much for all the messages. And so I had like a list of books that I wanted that I sent over to my local used bookstore, and I was like, let me know if you guys have any of these or put me on the list, whatever. So they had 2 of the books, which were the 2 I was most excited about. So I'm very excited to show you guys these. I got Eat a Peach by David Chang, which it's got a beautiful, beautiful cover.
Oh, man. So much going on there.
Yeah, these are both memoirs, which is really exciting. So David Chang is a chef, and he wrote a book. And that's all I really need to know. I don't really know him all that well. I've seen him on The Chef Show. That is Jon Favreau's show, where he just like gets a bunch of chefs on and they cook stuff. And it was great. I loved that show.
I feel like I don't understand Jon Favreau's career.
I don't understand it either. Which it doesn't make any sense. Like I
respect it.
Like directed Iron Man, but is also like making a show about food. I love it.
He's got like 4 different careers going on, because he like started as just like a rom-com actor. Like he was like the main guy in a lot of rom-coms. That was just what he was. That's what I thought Jon Favreau was. And then he suddenly, like you said, directed Iron Man and The Lion King and like really prestigious movies. And I'm like, okay, that's a weird pivot. But then he did that one chef movie. And because of that, he's got this whole chef vibe thing as well. Yeah.
He's a mystery. I would like to read a memoir from him. That would be interesting.
So true. So true. Damn.
Okay. And then the other chef, it's not really a chef book necessarily. It's just another book about food. I got Taste by Stanley Tucci.
Oh, cool.
Or it's called
I
Taste,
have
My
that
Life
one.
Through Food. You own this?
I really think I do own that.
That sounds so weird to me.
I know. Where is it? I barely know where anything is right now, book-wise. But I'm pretty sure I have that because it got sent to me like as an early review copy.
Okay.
But like, I haven't read it and it was 2 years ago or whatever.
I love that.
But I keep being recommended Stanley Tucci reels on Instagram of him cooking and his beautiful house.
Okay, I haven't seen any of those, so I'll have to look into that.
Okay, you gotta
too.
go. His kitchen is unbelievable.
I bet.
Damn.
But yeah, I'm really excited for this, and a few people also recommended me a movie that he was in many years ago called Big Night, which I knew about and just haven't seen yet. I've been meaning to watch it for a long time. And that's a book about, cooking and stuff. And I don't know, I think he might have written that movie as well, or directed or something. I don't know. I honestly don't know that much about Stanley Tucci, but I'm like, you know what? I'm down for a good old celebrity memoir where he's just talking about food. So,
yeah, that sounds great.
That's my little book haul. Yeah, I'm really excited about the books I got.
I feel like you could read all 3 of those this month.
Yeah. And I might.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they feel like so in what you're currently in the mood for.
Exactly. I'm trying to just like really follow my bliss, I was about to say, and that's like not what I would like to say. But that's the vibe. I want to just like read whatever will make me happiest.
Oh, that's so funny. Damn.
Yeah. What about you? What you been up to?
Oh man. I really hurt my foot.
Oh. That's not good.
I dropped a wooden shelf, slammed right onto it.
Ow.
Like from probably about 5 feet. Like I was holding it in front of me, so yeah, probably about 5 feet, and then it fell, and the first thing it hit before it hit the ground was my foot.
Ouch.
And it was so bad that I thought I'd broken myself, and it was really late at night. Like it was like 10 p.m. or something, and I was like, this is like really bad pain, but I'm sure I'm overreacting. Like I'm just like gonna go to bed, sleep it off. I'll wake up in the morning. The next day, really excruciating pain. Oof. So the injury happened Thursday night. Okay. All of Friday, like I literally tried walking to my swimming pool, as you guys know, and I walked literally like 100 meters. And I was like, nope, turn this thing around. I like couldn't walk. I couldn't imagine walking that far.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're turning around. So Friday was a wash. Saturday, I woke up and it was starting to feel a little better. I was like, I think it's better. I don't know though. Yeah. It's like still really hurting. Sunday, felt fine. Felt fine. And today, I feel great. So I don't think I broke it. I think I sprained it or like something. Like right now, if I put weight on it, I'm like, ah. But if I'm like just chilling or walking slowly, then I'm totally fine.
Okay.
So that's literally it, because I didn't do anything because of that. That's kind of
what I did. Threw your weekend for a loop.
It really did. All I did was like slowly recover and try and get as much done as possible, because in a couple of days, Connor and I are going to Ontario to visit his family and to go to Toronto for a few days to see his friends and stuff. And so I'm like trying to race to finish a bunch of things in time. Yeah. But I found out that there's a place that does brunch nearby. Ooh. But it was so cute, Raylene. Like you go up to the place and there's no indoor seating. It's just like order at a little window, canteen style. And you're like, can I get the brunch? And they're like, yeah, totally. And they have a little paper. And on the paper, there's a lot of multiple choice questions, right? So it's like, well, how do you want your eggs? How do you want your toast? Or what kind of toast do you want? Yeah. How do you want like bacon, sausage, or this other thing? And so it had like 5 questions or something. Tea, coffee, or orange juice.
My goodness. This is exciting.
And then that was it. Like there was no other items on the menu. Like it was just
brunch.
This is the meal you're going to have. And you're like, great. And then it was actually so lovely. We did that on Sunday morning, and I'm like so excited to go back. So enjoying the like small town country vibes, leaning into the summer in a small village.
That's wonderful. Well, I have a question for you, because I'm sure people are wondering, how are the bookshelves coming along?
Oh, great question. Delayed.
I can see that you've got brackets behind you and just one little shelf.
Here's what's really important, right? Oh yeah, you can see if I lean over, you can see that there's one little shelf right.
Like something's happening.
Hard to point it,
but he's not there yet.
So basically, I was like trying to race to finish them to get them for a video deadline, and then that video deadline came and went. Okay, I missed the deadline. Well, basically, I realized I was gonna miss a deadline, so I pivoted quickly to film a faster video.
Gotcha.
And then all my energy went to making that video, so this project got put on halt, and now it's very slowly moving forward, but it is moving forward. So
awesome.
like you said, like I got all those brackets up 2 nights ago, and I sent you a photo of them.
Yes.
And now I am continuing on, but it is gonna, God, it's just so funny how delayed this project has gotten, because I keep having to prioritize other things and other things. But when it's one day,
I'm so excited for them to be finished, for you to be able to rest in your room full of books.
Like, I genuinely think it's gonna be magical, because I'm gonna be able to move all of these books that are taking, they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be organized and beautiful. And then I'm gonna, I just think that this room is gonna become so much more peaceful and awesome.
Yeah, it's a little crazy right now.
It is a little crazy.
I can't even see all the books, but I know what they look like. I can picture them. They're everywhere.
It's a mess. It's a mess. Okay, but I didn't buy any books this week. There's nothing to haul, but we can pivot to what I finished this week.
Sure.
I read Days at the Morisaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagisawa. Satoshi Yagisawa was born in Chiba, Japan in 1977. Days at the Morisaki Bookshop was his debut novel, published in Japan in 2009, with the English translation coming out this year in 2023. In his Twitter bio, he describes himself as writing about the small lives of ordinary people. He has published other books in Japan, but this is the first translated to English. So, I did not expect to read this. This was not on my list, but just like you, I wanted to follow my bliss. As Raylene always says, follow your bliss.
Oh, I'm going to regret that.
I don't know. I had hauled this last week.
Yeah.
Obviously. And I had just finished reading Rental Person Who Does Nothing.
Yeah.
And there was lots of things about that book that I enjoyed. There were many other things that I didn't enjoy. So it was kind of a real mixed bag. But then I also hauled this book in that episode. And I was like, what is that book about, actually? Like, what's going on there? It's so little. I bet you I could read it this week. Like, I bet you I could just read the whole thing.
Just do that, yeah.
And so I started reading it. And next thing I knew, I was like, this is the book I'm reading. I just want to read this. This is such a good vibe. So...
Awesome.
Okay, I have a lot of things to say. I'm excited to talk about it. So, first of all, reading this book made me realize that I forgot to mention something last week about Rental Person Who Does Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Rental Person Who Does Nothing, which I think I already put it away. Yeah, it was, remember the whole question and confusion about who wrote that book?
Yes.
The other big question and confusion I had was, who translated the book?
Oh.
It doesn't say it on the cover. It doesn't say it on the inside few pages. Spooky. Part of me wonders if that's only because it's a proof copy. Yeah. I was sent an advanced reader's copy. It is not the finished copy. So I'm not saying it's not in the finished copy, but it wasn't clear. It wasn't in the acknowledgments. It wasn't super clear to me who translated it. And when I go to the Rental Person Who Does Nothing page, on the publisher's website, on Pan Macmillan's website, it does say the translator. Okay. Don Notting, who shows here he hasn't translated anything else for Pan Macmillan, but maybe has for other things. But anyways, this one is translated by Eric Ozawa. And one of the things I kept thinking about in this book, because really the main problem I had with this book was that there was quite a few sentences that felt really awkward. Okay. And it's so interesting with translated books. You can't tell if it's the translator or the author. Yeah. Because part of me is like, was the author just doing really there's some clunky sentences in here, or words that I'm like, why did they pick that word? But maybe the translator was just like, this is what they wrote. That's what they wrote.
Yeah,
so
translation is such an art because I feel like they can be translating like word for word as accurately as possible, but that doesn't necessarily like translate well. Sometimes you have to actually like rewrite things a little bit almost so that they make more sense. So I wonder.
I totally agree. But and then the other part of me was like, or maybe it's just a translator being like making decisions that I didn't agree with. So that I would say was my main gripe with the book. There was quite a few sentences that I was like, that felt really kind of awkward, or that felt like it almost didn't fit in that paragraph. And I'm a bit like, I can't tell why. So that would be my thought there. And yeah, I wanted to mention, because we like mentioning the translators, right? Like we like making sure that the translators get their thing. And I realized last week I didn't mention who the translator was because it wasn't in my art copy, which is weird. But anyways, okay. So this is a book about, I'm trying to remember the name, Takako. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. And everything falls apart for her. She's 25. She's dating a guy. And the guy suddenly says to her, it was crazy. Raylene, it was crazy. She's like hanging out with him. And he's like, so I'm getting married. Oh, and she's like, what? Like, she sits there thinking like, I feel like he can't be asking me to marry him because he would have said something different. I'm a little confused. And I'm like, yeah, what the hell's going on? And he's like, yeah, I'm marrying that other girl in our office, but that doesn't mean you and I can't stop seeing each other. What? And she's like, what? And so she's a very, very timid person. She's very non-confrontational, but she at least is like, she's like, no, we're clearly breaking up. Yes, so she's like, insane. I think she was in that moment too scared to really say anything, but she just like stops responding to him. And then she's like, I don't even want to see him at work and see the woman that he's been dating on the, like, I'm the mistress kind of a situation. And I feel really weird about all this. So she quits her job as well. So that's why the breakup leads to her losing her job as well, because she's like, I'm quitting. So basically now she's lost and confused, and what is she gonna do? And then she gets a call from her uncle. And this is where it's very like Stardew Valley. Ooh. Where she gets a call from her uncle. In the other one she gets a letter from her grandpa, and in Stardew, and in this book her uncle's like, I need help running my bookshop. I know that you've kind of fallen on a hard moment. You can come work for just room and board, and so you don't have to work that many shifts, and you can just live here and not worry about spending your savings on rent, and just do a couple shifts for me a week. And she's like, you know what? Yeah, that's a good idea. That's better than what I'm doing, which is just sleeping all the time. So she goes there, and that's the catalyst for the book. And what the book's about is her like becoming more of a direct person, being able to say what she feels, but also falling in love with books because she's not a reader. And now she's working at this bookshop, so she's like learning to love books, and the relationships between her and her new friends and her uncle. It was so lovely. It was really, really cute. But that does feel like the word. It did not feel particularly deep. It didn't feel like it was trying to say something really big, or that it had the capacity to really like be attempting to say something really important. It felt like Stardew Valley. It felt like a really charming book. So if you're looking for something that, you know how people often ask us, Raylene, they're like, do you have a book where nothing bad happens?
This is that.
This is one of those. Where it's like a lovely place to spend some time. And very genuinely, when it finished, I was like, woohoo, finished another book. You know, that great feeling. You put it down. And then for the rest of the night, I was like, damn, I kind of wish I could read more in that world. Like I was really enjoying the world. The bookshop is really well placed. It's it feels like a really real place. It's in a neighborhood of Tokyo called Jimbocho. Am I pronouncing that right? Probably not. But that is their historic book district. Oh, cool. And there's like hundreds of bookshops in that area. And I've been there. And so I could picture it so much in my mind. I think I have some photos, and I think it'd be cool to dig those up, actually. and add them. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, I'll try and find those for the Instagram. But yes, I absolutely enjoyed this book. But it wasn't like a 4 or 5 stars. Yeah. I feel like it was like a 3.75.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Where it was just like, it felt like it was a really fun, lovely read, but it didn't feel like it went very deep. It didn't feel like the characters were like, wow, that character's always going to stay with me or anything like that. So that's my review. I also really think, you know, if you're a person who loves books and bookshops and you'll probably really like it because you get to just hang out in a bookshop for a long time.
That's true. I'm going to say something controversial right now. I don't think I like reading books about bookstores.
I know what you mean. A lot of the time they're too cheesy.
Yeah. I feel like
it's like
they're too on the nose or something. It's like, yeah, I love books, so you think I'm gonna love this, like living in this book world, but I just don't like it most of the time.
I totally agree. This for some reason didn't have that effect on me.
Oh, good.
Maybe because she didn't love books either.
Yeah, that's a different take.
She never becomes like, you know, she never goes on a speech about how much she loves books and books have shaped her life. And it's just like she has a growing appreciation for the shop, but also not just because it's a bookshop, but just because it's a shop where she got to spend time with her uncle and got to meet friends and stuff. So maybe because of that, it didn't feel too heavy-handed.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
God, you're gonna love books.
Okay, I have another question. There's a cat on the cover of that book. Would you say it's a cat book?
There was no cats in this book mentioned even one time.
Classic. They're trying to draw me in with their lies.
They're trying to get you. No, there was never a cat mentioned in this book. I don't think there was ever a bicycle mentioned in this book either.
This is criminal.
And the cover also does make it seem a little bit more like a romance. Yeah. Like, because there's like the silhouette of a man and a woman.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a romance. It was more just a book about a person getting over a really difficult point in their life and getting to the other side of that struggle.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's good to know because I've had a few people send me pictures of the cover and they're like, is this a cat book? And I was like, I don't know.
It's not. Okay. Raylene, not even a little bit.
That is really good to know. Thank you for confirming. Thank you and good night.
Thank you and good night. So that's what I finished reading this week, and I just finished it yesterday. So nice. I haven't started on anything else. The other thing I did want to mention was, like I mentioned, I'm going away to Ontario, and I'm listening to The Year of Magical Thinking on audiobook. Yeah. So my plan is already to finish it on the plane.
Oh, nice.
So that should be finally getting finished this week, which will be good. And then I have one final reading update. God. Because you may recall, you TBR challenged me.
Oh, yeah.
You challenged me to do the TBR challenge and to read Nimona. Mm-hmm. And the reason was because you watched the movie and you loved it. And you're like, Ariel, you need to get in this world. I TBR challenge you. So the other day, I was filming a video for the patrons. I was filming, because every month Raylene and I release bonus videos for the Patreon. Yep. And I was, somebody requested that I do a tour of my graphic novels. So, as I mentioned before, my shelves or my office and my bookshelves are a complete mess. So I went through all of my books and pulled out all of the graphic novels, put them all back together. There are so many more than I thought. And I made the rainbow good again, re-rainbowed them and everything. So life is feeling good. I start filming that video. And during the filming of the video, I realized I don't own Nimona anymore. I really think I remember donating it selling it or whatever when I moved. So I disqualified myself from the TBR challenge because I literally I don't even have it. I'm not on my TBR. That's really funny. Which makes a lot of sense to me because I remember trying to read it a couple years ago and not really caring about it. Yeah. And then I think I just lost interest in it. Yeah, so if I had had it, I would have done it. I would have read it, but I literally don't own it.
That's really funny. I still think you should watch the movie though.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's important.
I want to watch the movie. Yeah. But that is the update for everyone who was waiting to find out.
Oh, that's awesome. I kind of forgot about it, so I'm glad that you brought it up.
That's funny.
We could have just forgotten that, left it by the wayside forever.
Okay, Raylene, what about you? What have you read? What are you reading?
Okay, yes, I've got a couple things to talk about today. So, first off, I did end up finishing Boy's Life by Robert McCammon.
I've enjoyed this journey.
Robert McCammon has published nearly 30 books, making his debut in 1978 with his novel Ball. Published in 1991, Boy's Life is his 11th novel, and it received the World Fantasy Award for Best Novel the following year. His work has been nominated and won numerous Bram Stoker awards, and he is still writing to this day at the age of 71. I finished this book. As I said last week, I was kind of ready to just power through to the end because, if you guys remember, this is the book that I was enjoying but finding a bit boring, a bit slow. And I would say I enjoyed it. Overall, I enjoyed it, but it was like a bit of a slog. Like, I think
so it didn't really pick up.
Yeah, it didn't. It picked up a little bit actually towards the end. Like, I would say the last 30 pages or so of the book were the most exciting of the whole book, but this is a 580-ish page book.
Yikes.
So for it to be that long and not be kind of like moving along at a quicker pace was a problem for me. Like, for example, I read 11/22/63 by Stephen King earlier this year. That book was closer to 800 pages, and I feel like I read that book more quickly than I read this book. Like, it just kind of like, you know, moved along at a quicker pace. So when I started thinking about it like that, I'm like, yeah, what is wrong with me or this book? Like, there's something weird going on. But all in all, I still think it was a good book. And so I do recommend it to people who, I would say, if you like Stephen King, this is like along the same kind of lines. It's a coming of age. There's a small town. It's got lots of different themes. Like, there's, you know, these horrible bullies that the main character has to deal with, and it's set in the 60s, so there's a lot of like racism running rampant and all this kind of stuff. So there's lots of like things going on. It's very, very juicy in terms of like themes and you know, activities going on, and like there's monsters, kind of like, it's got a lot of different things going on. So it is like a good book. I just found it to be slow, and so when I finished, so I finished it and I was like, I already know what I'm going to read next. Like, I'm going to read something that I know is going to be like really fast paced, really exciting. And so I read another book. After I finished Boy's Life, I read this entire book in a couple of days. I don't know if you're going to be surprised I read this, but I read Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. Eliza Clark was born in 1994 in Newcastle upon Tyne and now lives in London. Her debut novel, Boy Parts, was published in 2020 by Influx Press. Her second novel, Penance, was just released in the UK and will hit North American shelves on September 26th of this year. She also has a short story collection on the way to be published in 2024 by Faber and Faber. I immediately picked up this book after reading Boy's Life because I just felt like it was going to be the right move. And my God, was it ever. So this book, I think I mentioned last week, like when I was getting towards the end of Boy's Life, I already was eyeballing certain books on my shelf, and this was that book. Like, for some reason, this one started to call to me, and I just really, really wanted to read it. I just started to be in the mood for a book that's like an unsound heroine type of book, you know? We got a messed up main lady, and that is exactly what this book is. So my best way to kind of sum up this book in a few words would be, this is the result of if Ottessa Moshfegh wrote American Psycho and was British.
Whoa.
So that's the vibe of this book. It's very, like, the main character is just horrible. Like, she's a horrible, horrible person. She's this woman named Irina, and she's like 28. She's very skinny, very tall, very beautiful. Like, she's, you know, sort of like an Ottessa Moshfegh type character.
Yes.
And she's just like mean to everyone, because she can kind of get away with it because she's so like beautiful, and she's a talented photographer. Like, she's got all these things going for her that just let her kind of get away with everything. And she has like some dark things from her past that aren't revealed until later in the book, but you know, like, she's done something, like she's hiding something from people, from herself, whatever. And so she's just like a really, really bad person, and which I found very fun to read, though, because it's so obvious that she's terrible, and everybody is like around her is kind of like, what is, like, why are you friends with her? Like, she has one friend who's kind of you know, always hanging on to her, but the friend's boyfriend is like, why are you still friends with this woman? She's terrible. And everybody hates her basically. But anyway, so the plot of the book is Irina is, like I said, she's a photographer, and she takes kind of like fetishist photos of men. Like she just like finds men on the street who are just like kind of average looking, you know, she just like scouts out people who are totally normal and then takes these like kind of crazy photos of them. And at the beginning of the book, she's offered a gallery showing thing or whatever. Like she's going to be part of this whole thing. And so she starts throughout the book, it's her trying like going back through boxes of her old photographs and picking out the ones that she wants, but they start like sparking all these memories in her. And so a lot of the book is about her kind of like taking you through her whole journey of like what she was like in college and what happened after she was, you know, finished college and all this stuff. And so you kind of go through her whole story and you kind of get to see her whole like messed up life unravel in front of you. And she starts to kind of fall apart a little bit throughout the book as well, which is very, very chaotic and fun to watch. But this book, and why I also compare it to American Psycho, and a lot of other people have compared it to American Psycho, is because she is like, she's very similar to the main character from American Psycho in that she's like very obsessed with how she looks, and she's like I said, very mean to people, which is another big thing. And she's like just so cool but so horrible and kind of messed up. But yeah, it was really good. I'm having a hard time putting it into words, but I really loved this book. Like I really, really loved it. I don't think you would like it though.
It doesn't sound like I would, but I'm glad that you did. You know? Like it feel sounds like you had a good time with it.
I had a really good time. It's also really funny. That was the other thing I wanted to mention is it's hilarious. Like the way it's written is very snappy, very fast, but also very, very funny. In like a satirical kind of way. But I loved it. And I definitely recommend it to anybody who likes Tessa Moshfegh and is okay with a little bit of like gore and stuff like that.
I'm really glad that you were able to turn the reading around so quickly.
Yeah.
Where you like got out of this super slow, confusing time and then just hopped into a quick, great read.
Yeah. And it made me so happy. And I was like, okay. And moved on to read something completely different from that. I'm reading the most random thing possibly. After reading that, I am now reading Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck.
Okay, well, that is the right choice because as we did our quarterly check-in last week, you need to read a classic every quarter.
Yep, I need to read my classic, but I also need to read John Steinbeck, and so I decided to jump into this. So I've only just started it yesterday, so I'm on page 43. I'm just in the very beginning, but already I'm really enjoying it. Like I've read a couple of John Steinbeck's. I've read 2 of his short novels so far, and really enjoyed them, and I feel like this is just as good as his novels. Like it's just so great. So at the beginning, he just decides he wants to go on a road trip, basically. And he's like married and has a dog and all this stuff. And he's just like, all right, I'm just going to take off for a few months. Wife, see you later. And he rigs up this truck so that it's like all like a little house for him to live in with, you know, everything that he needs. And then he just takes off and he's just going on a journey around America. He's just like going to all these different states and places that he's never been to before. And that's like the setup for the book. And so this is his memoir. It's also quite funny. He was talking about how he brought like tons of books and paper and his typewriter and stuff. But he was like, I'm probably not going to write at all while I'm on this trip. I'm just going to enjoy the trip, but I brought all this stuff with me anyway. Like he's just like over prepared for the trip.
That's awesome.
Which is quite funny. So it's also quite hilarious. He's at the beginning of the book, he said, he's like, at the beginning of this journey, I thought so many people were going to like recognize me, you know, because he's a famous author. Like people have seen his picture, but then he's like, nobody did. Nobody knew who I was.
I just don't matter.
Which I thought was really funny.
That's so interesting. One of the classics, like, okay, so remember last week we were both talking about how we're reading classics, but we're not reading the classics we meant to read.
Yeah,
like when we set the goal, we had a different thing in mind. I feel like this is what you had in mind.
Exactly, like reading a book, John Steinbeck. Yeah, that's what I want. I mean, ideally I'd be reading like East of Eden or something, but I still feel like this still is great. This is good enough. And it's a memoir, which I'm so excited about right now. So kind of just works.
One of the ones I had in mind was The Grapes of Wrath, because do you remember I bought that copy like a couple years ago? Maybe now it was like 2 years ago that I picked it up, and I was like, God, this looks so great. It matches your Travels with Charlie edition.
Oh, I love that. It's a good edition. I really love it.
They're so cool.
Yeah.
I was flipping through this autobiography by Beverly Cleary, who wrote one of my favorite books, 15, and I guess like her autobiographies are really well known and or like well regarded.
Oh, okay.
And so because she has two. One's like her first part of her life and this like when she was younger and then older. But I was reading the beginning of it. So she's standing at a bus stop with her family because she's about to head out. She's leaving for college.
Okay.
And I forget where she's from. I got the vibe that it was from the Midwest or something.
Yeah.
But she's heading to California and she's so excited. Like she can't believe that she gets to go and live in California and go to college. I think it's the 20s or 30s.
Okay.
And she's like, I was so excited. I couldn't believe I was going to be escaping the depression to a place, to California, to go to a place where all they did was film movies and tap dance. And then there's a line that's like, she was like, it hadn't come yet till 1934 when John Steinbeck would let everyone know that was not the reality at all. Yeah. Because obviously he was such a chronicler of how bad that time was in California and what the reality was when people got across to California. It was like, the depression's everywhere and Hollywood is one town. Yeah. Hollywood is a town. So anyway, I just thought of that because you're reading Steinbeck. That's funny. That's cool. That's cool. All right. So is that all you're reading right now?
That's all of it. Yeah. I just started Travels with Charlie and I'm just trying to focus on that.
Nice.
Yeah. Just enjoy that. Soak it in.
It is now time to introduce one of our snazzy new animations.
Yes.
Because it is time for book games.
Today, for book games, I decided to create a silly tag. I just wanted to do something because it's summer and it's hot. So I was like, what's a theme?
I'm sweating. I'm sweating over here.
I'm like, what is a theme that I can go with for just like hotness? And so instead of doing like a summer specific tag, this tag is about being hot. And I have called it the Hot Spots book tag. And
I love it.
Basically, it's just a bunch of different locations that are hot and you have to match a book up with it. So perfect. So I sent these prompts to Ariel and we are now both prepared and ready to jump in. So let's start with the first prompt. What is a book that you could read by a swimming pool?
I picked Swimming Studies by Leanne Shapton. No one is surprised. This is a book that I'm in the midst of and I'm loving, and it's about a competitive swimmer who's reflecting back on the time when she was doing competitive swimming and kind of like what her relationship with swimming and pools is now that she is no longer a competitive swimmer. Yeah. And like how it kind of haunted her childhood to be a part of it, but how also it kind of made her who she is. It's a really, really cool book, and Raylene gave this to me a while ago. The author, Leanne Shapton, is also a painter, an artist and stuff. Yeah. There's like really cool photos of bathing suits in here. There's sketches of stuff. Like these really cool ocean shots. So it's a really interesting, beautiful book. Yeah.
I love that.
That was my pick.
Perfect. I took kind of a different approach on this one because I didn't want to just pick a book about a pool. So I decided to go with a book that I have actually read, like by the poolside, or maybe it was a lake, I decided to go with a book like that because I have this very specific problem where if I'm sitting at a beach or around a pool or something, I get distracted by everything. And so if I'm going to be reading, I have to read something that's going to really grip my attention. And so the book that I decided to pick for this is Unbound by Neil Shusterman, because I remember reading this at a pool and I was just like so into it that I didn't want to stop reading, even though it's like there's people talking around me, there's, people making noise and splashing around, but I was still able to like zone in and read this. So I pick Unwind because it's just a very gripping book.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so random, but I just I was like, you know what? What's a book that I've read by a pool? And that was one of the only ones that I could remember. So I went with that. Okay, number 2, a book to read in the desert. This isn't the craziest one either. It gets crazier.
You really said that like Sam Eagle, who's the eagle, the Muppet, who's do you know the one?
I don't like Muppets.
He's so Yeah, I've
one of
always
my
found that to
things.
be the saddest quality of you. That I really love Muppets. I think they're so charming.
I
and
also don't like
wholesome.
claymation. Let's just put that out there while we're all here.
while we're
That's
losing
another thing I
fans
get
here.
shamed for. Yeah, a lot of people don't like that about me.
I don't feel attached to claymation.
Okay,
Maybe
cool.
I just haven't seen the right claymation. I don't know. Got to give it a chance.
Yeah.
Okay, the book that I picked for this is Tracks.
Ooh.
By Robin Davidson. So this is not a book that I have read. You gave me this copy,
I did,
right?
yeah.
Yes, I thought so. So this is I've seen the movie adaptation of this.
Yeah.
This is a real life memoir of a woman who, it says, one woman's journey across 1,700 miles of Australian outback.
Yikes.
So she's in the desert scape that is Australia. And yeah, like it literally says, enduring sweltering heat, fending off poisonous snakes and lecherous men, chasing her camels, like it's just etc. Courageous heroine driven by a love of Australia's landscape. So it sounds really fantastic. I really enjoyed the movie, which has, oh god, what's her name? Mia Wazowski.
Mia Wazowski. That's the one.
That's it. And Adam Driver. So those two are the main stars of the movie, and I really enjoyed it, and I've been meaning to read the book ever since, because I watched that movie and then I looked it up and I was like, oh, it was based on a book.
Yeah.
And so
And it was, I remember that moment too, because we couldn't find that book anywhere. Like, that book is not
Yes,
easy to
that
find.
was
And then
it.
I managed to
Yes.
somehow find it in a thrift store or something, and I was so
yes.
pumped.
It's got a little sticker on it that says $8.
Ooh, I don't think I paid $8 for it, but that's cool. All right, the book that I decided to go with for this one is an old YA favorite called Blood Red Road by Moira Young.
Oh my god, hell yeah.
Yeah, so this is one of the few YA books from my past that I've actually kept. Like, I've hung on to it because for some reason I feel like I'm going to read it again and love it one day. I didn't keep the sequels because I didn't like the sequels as much, but the first book was a lot of fun. So the basic plot of this book is that the main character is this girl named Saba, and she has a twin brother and a younger sister. And at the beginning of the book, I think her dad is killed and her brother is kidnapped. And so she's like, I have to go after my brother. But she's just like stuck with her little sister that she doesn't really like that much. And they just go on this journey through like a deserty landscape. Like, it's kind of post-apocalyptic almost, but it's set in this like desert kind of area. So it's very, very dry, very hot. So that's the vibe of the book. But yeah, it was really good.
That's perfect.
I really enjoyed that book. Okay, number 3, a book to read while camping.
I picked A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, a book I read earlier this year and really enjoyed. Speaking of the Murasaki Bookshop, which is like a very calming, peaceful, hope punk book, this is that. This is about a tea monk who, this is set like a couple hundred years in the future. We have developed robots and AI so far forward that they've actually decided that they want nothing to do with us, and they are leaving. Robots are leaving, and then they're going off into the woods, and they're having their own whole existence. Because of that, because of losing all of automation and everything, like, society has kind of slowed down a lot. It's not really explained very well, but I get the feeling that, like, we either forgot, like, humans forgot how to build robots, or they, like, found it unethical to build them, because they're like, they clearly don't want to be with us, so we got to do everything ourselves again. But because of that, society's kind of backtracked a lot. Anyways, so we've got this tea monk who decides to go off and be a traveling tea monk. So it really is a camping story. Like, they have their little caravan, they load it up with tea, and they go from village to village doing their tea ceremonies and giving tea to people, and then they pack up and they go to the next village. And so it is literally them camping, but then also a big part of the book is them meeting a robot and going into the woods and kind of camping out with the robot.
Cute.
So it's a camping book.
I love that. I love that.
And it's a great book.
That's awesome. So my first pick is an obvious one, so I've done 2 for this one. The first book is Wild by Cheryl Strayed, because
Classic.
classic camping, hiking, you know, that's the vibe for sure.
Hell yeah.
But the other book I wanted to mention is one that I really love, but I don't talk about that often, which is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. So this one is about a 9-year-old girl who is out like on a walk or a hike with her mom and her brother at the beginning of the book, and then she gets separated from them. And so it's about her being alone in the woods, trying to survive, basically, as a 9-year-old. And there's like some kind of spooky force also in the forest. And she's also obsessed with baseball, which is, you know, there's a lot of elements, but the main thing is that she's in the forest. So it's like a camping book in that way, but it's also like horror. So it's like, maybe you know, you'd have to be a little bit brave if you want to read this while camping, but I still think it's worth a try. All right.
Yeah, that would have been fun if I'd been camping recently and I could be like, this was a book I read while camping, but I haven't been camping in so long.
I know, same here. Yeah, I don't remember what I read last time I went camping, but yeah, that would be a nice vibe too. Okay, number 4, a book to read in a restaurant kitchen.
I
Very hot.
loved this one.
Thank
I
you.
thought that was such a clever idea because that is like, you can feel the oppressive heat.
Yep.
I was trying to find any book that is like set in a restaurant or set in a kitchen or has to do with cooking or has to do, I couldn't think of anything.
Man.
And then thankfully I remembered Sourdough
by
Robin Sloan. This was a book I read in 2020, so it's been a few years now, but I really loved it when I read it. It's about this girl who is a software engineer at this like basically like a Google type company, and she's programming robots, and she's like programming, what I really remember is she was set the task of trying to help a robot crack an egg open. Because apparently that's like a really difficult skill for robots. I'm pretty sure they figured it out now, but at the time that he wrote this book and stuff, like it was very challenging. Like robots couldn't figure out how to delicately do a task like that. Like, because we have a sense of sense, right?
Yeah.
Like we can sense what is too hard or what is too soft depending on the egg and all these sorts of factors. And they just kept smashing all these eggs. And so she's working on that, but then basically what happens is she is given this bread that she just thinks is amazing, and she's like, oh, I want to try making my own. And she gets the sourdough starter it's like, is it a magical starter or not? It's like there's like a tiny tinge of magical realism in it, and she's like, you know what, I want to try and make my own bread. And she becomes manic making her own bread and like making a stove and everything, and then she's like, I want to morph the two things. I want to like create a robot that can make sourdough bread. It's hard to explain, but anyway, it's very, very fun and cool and interesting, and she becomes part of like an underground society of people who make very avant-garde, fringe, cool food and stuff. So it's set in the culinary world, and it's a really fun, wild ride. It doesn't have the oppressive feeling of like a hot kitchen. Yeah. But
it is about baking bread, oven, hot, you know.
Totally.
I decided to go with to this day, my favorite kind of like kitchen book, which is The Dishwasher by Stéphane Leroux. This is a book that was also a favorite of mine 2 years ago, I think. And oh man, this book was just so good. And this one does have that like stressful vibe to it. That's like, you're in a kitchen, things are insane. The main character has a gambling problem as well. Has a gambling addiction, and so he's constantly like on the tipping point. Like something could go so wrong, and he's working in this stressful environment. He's working as a dishwasher in this like fancy French restaurant, I want to say, if I remember correctly. And so it's very, very high stress, high intensity, high heat. So yeah, that one I feel like really captures like the feeling of working inside of a hot kitchen.
That was the first one I thought of as well, but I haven't read it, and I was hoping you would mention it.
Although another kitchen book that you've read that I think you've forgotten is Seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley.
Oh, that's such a great
It's
pick.
also more of a cozy and like magical, so not exactly the same vibe. But yeah, that's another kitchen book that I thought of.
Yeah, the other one was Sweet Bean Paste, but I was like, that's way too happy.
Way too cozy and happy.
Yeah.
All right, on to number 5, a book to read on a tropical beach.
Okay, I couldn't find a single book that I own that's set in a beach. Literally couldn't find any. So But then I found this one, and I haven't read it yet, so I don't know if I would like it or not. I think I would. But anyways, it's Bonjour Tristesse by Francois Sagan. So, it's probably not Sagan. That sounds very North American. Sagan.
Sagan.
There we go. So basically, it says this book scandalized 1950s France with its portrayal of a teenager terrible, Cécile, a heroine who rejects conventional notions of love, marriage, and responsibility to choose her own sexual freedom. Fast cars, free love. God, I love it. It says one long hot summer. So I think it's a hot book, but also the main reason I picked it up was because it's set in the French Riviera. So it's set in the Mediterranean seaside. So it's an oceany-ish book.
Cool.
This is a little classic I've been meaning to read for so long.
Yeah.
I'd love to get to that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I once again kind of went in a different direction. I also don't have any books, I don't think, that are set like on a beach or tropical climate. That's just like not a vibe that I really look for. So I decided to go
I just thought of one.
Oh yeah? What is it?
Yeah, my pirate book. What's the name of that pirate book?
Latitudes? Is that what it's called?
Pirate Latitudes by Michael Crichton. Yes, I love that book. That is such a fun book. Okay, I picked that one too.
Okay.
That's just a pirate book.
That is a pirate book. Okay.
Awesome.
But yes, I decided to just go with a book that I could see myself reading on a tropical beach. If I was sitting in a hot, hot sun by the ocean, I would pick to read Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, which is one of my favorite books. And I feel like that is a key for me. Similarly to the pool situation, I have a hard time reading in that type of setting just because there's so much going on around me. And so I would have to pick something that I've already read, I think, that I already know the story of, so I can kind of dip in and out of it and not get confused, but also something that's gripping, something that will be really exciting. I feel like thrillers make really good beach reads, actually. People often think, romance or, stuff like that is what you got to be reading on a beach, but I think Gone Girl makes the most sense. So that's what I've picked.
Starting a revolution over here.
Right? All right, on to the next one. This one is pretty weird. Okay, a book to read on Mars.
Okay, Raylene, I think we have to edit this one. I just remembered I was going to bring this up. I meant to do it before the pod.
Okay.
But Mars is cold.
What? That's funny.
It's the red planet, but it's way colder than Earth.
Okay, fine.
So I
Venus.
think yes, Venus is the hottest planet.
Okay.
Okay, I picked an absolutely remarkable thing by Hank Green because it is the only alien book I could think of. I really love this book. I really, really enjoyed it when I read it many years ago now. But it's a book about Earth. It isn't set in Venus or Mars, but it's a book about Earth where one day our main character is walking home really late at night, coming home from her job, and she finds this massive statue. And she lives in New York, so she thinks to herself, maybe this is just some really cool art installation. Do this kind of slapdash in the middle of the sidewalk. So she names it Carl as a joke, and she films a little video, like, haha, this is Carl. Oh yeah, it feels funny, and oh, this is the kind of structure. How cool, and posts it to YouTube. But it turns out that, like, loads of these statues have appeared all over Earth in different countries and cities, and she just happened to post the first thing of it. And so now her video has gone totally viral, and she's accidentally become sort of the poster child for this alien invasion. And at first it's like, are these aliens or what is going on? And then that's how the plot kind of explodes. And it's a book not only about like what are humans versus what would like an alien could be, the impact of it, but also it's a book about like social media fame and how fickle it is. It's such a great book.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
All right, I decided to go with 172 Hours on the Moon by Johann Harstad.
Great choice.
So I'm thinking, if you're hanging out on Venus, just chilling, being an astronaut, why not read a horror book set on the moon? Because I could see that being a little bit frightening, but also it's the moon. You're not on the moon. You're safe. You're on Venus. It's all fine. So this book is one that you and I read many years ago, and both I'm sure that I think about this book randomly all the time. Like, it's one of those books that just like I love that we read this together. Like it was one of our first buddy reads, and it's about basically there's like NASA has this competition kind of thing to have a few kids, like teenagers, go to the moon because NASA's like, you know, people don't really care about space anymore and all this stuff, and so they're trying to like rejudge their brand like us. They're just trying to rejudge themselves, and so they do this competition to like send some kids to the moon. And then so you follow the three main characters who are from different places in the world, and they all go through this training, and then they go to the moon, and then shit starts to go sideways, and there's some strange happenings on the moon, and the astronauts that they're with like slowly kind of start getting picked off one by one, and they're like, wait, what's going on here? And it's a really gripping like horror book set in space.
Hell yeah.
Which is really fun. So I feel like that would just be great.
That is perfect.
All right, the final one we've got here is a book to read at a hot spring in Japan specifically, because I feel like that's the vibe.
Yeah, totally. So I would pick The Hole by Hiroko Oyamada.
Perfect.
This for me is one of the most summery books I've read in the last few years. Yeah, it is so hot and oppressive in its heat. It's about a woman who's moved to a very rural part of Japan, and she's just gotten married. She's now living next to her in-laws, and so she's feeling very claustrophobic, and Hiroko Oyamada makes the setting feel way more claustrophobic with, you can just hear the cicadas shouting in the hot summer heat, and it's sleepy, and like it's got a level of malaise that you're just like, oh my god, like it feels like the hottest day where you don't want to do anything. It's humid. It's sort of a take on Alice in Wonderland in the lightest sense possible, but it is there. It's got that kind of magical spookiness. I really loved this book, and I really like this author, so super recommend. And also like one of the covers of all time.
Yeah, it's so good. Okay, I decided to go with the Makioka Sisters by Junichiro Tanizaki because when I was thinking about like the vibe of a hot spring in Japan, it's very like kind of old, kind of ancient feeling and like just beautiful. And this book is a classic. It came out in the 40s, I believe, and it's set just before World War II. And it's about this family of, it's like 4 sisters. So it's kind of like, imagine Little Women, but set in Japan, and they're rich instead of being poor. That's kind of the vibe. They're upper class folks, and it's kind of just goes through their lives, you know, who are they going to get married to and all this stuff. Like it's got that kind of vibe to it, but it's just like the complicated relationships that the sisters all have with each other and then with their parents.
Sounds amazing.
It's such a good book. Like it's huge, but I really, really enjoyed it. And funnily enough, I actually read this book in the summer, which doesn't seem like a summery book, but that just happens to be when I read it. So it actually kind of ties all together. But I just feel like, the kind of traditional Japanese vibe of this book fits the hot spring vibe as well. So that is what I've picked.
Well, Raylene, I thought that was a great tag.
Thanks.
I was so excited when you sent it to me. If you guys want to participate in it, we will put the questions in the description and in the show notes. Yep. We'd love if you would do it and share it with us on Instagram. Maybe use the hashtag HotspotsBookTag and tag us at books_unbound, and we'll share some of them on our Instagram. We'd love to see them. And we love when we get to like participate and stuff like that with you guys. So thank you, Raylene, for putting that together. Thank you all for listening to this episode. We are now going to go record our Patreon mini podcast Movie Tub that we do every week, where we talk about movies and shows we've been watching. Yes. And thank you so much to Maddie for our rebrand. We're so excited about it. We'll talk to you guys all next week.
Bye.